Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this F-Bank attorney and being able to connect with everyone. So just to get started, my name is Nicole Yavienko. I'm currently a second-year law student at Santa Clara Law, and I'll be moderating this panel along with my co-moderator, Tiffany. If you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nicole. My name is Tiffany Gutierrez. I'm a 2L at UC Hastings, and thank you again to the panelists for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today for this panel. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so our panel today is standing out, how to make your mark in law school and beyond. So we have some amazing attorneys here on this panel who work in a variety of different sectors and practice in different areas of law. So I'll have the panelists introduce themselves when I call their name. And if they would like, feel free to share a fun fact. So first, one of our panelists is Alex Padua.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Padua. I currently work at the California Attorney General's office in San Francisco. I'm in the correctional law section. I do civil litigation appeals related to the state's correctional system. I graduated from UC Hastings in 2019. So I'm a pretty recent grad, but glad to be here. A fun fact about myself is in college, my last year, I weirdly got into table tennis, like really into it. And I actually organized and won my school's intramural table tennis competition.
Great, and then our next panelist, Dalisai Nisperos.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dalisai Nisperos. I'm a 2010 grad of the University of Pennsylvania Law School, although I'm born and raised in Northern Cali. I'm currently practicing at Jackson Lewis, which is a national labor and employment defense firm. A lot of fun, never a dull moment. And a fun fact, I think most people know by virtue of my involvement with F-Bank that I'm Pinay, but I actually identify as Mexi Pinay because I'm mixed, which basically means that I've been spoiled with two of the best cuisines there are ever. So that's me.
Great, and Nelson Lam.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nelson Lam. I am currently employment counsel at Uber. Prior to that, I was working at a global law firm, DLA Piper in San Francisco, and I graduated from UC Hastings, class of 2015. And a fun fact, on 2 separate occasions, I have inadvertently run into Dave Chappelle, just like bumped into him randomly. I was like, oh, this is Dave Chappelle, but didn't bug him for a picture or anything, but just my stories.
Great, and lastly, Chriselle Raguro.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. My name is Chriselle Raguro, and I am currently the interim managing attorney and the pro bono network coordinating attorney at the Tahirih Justice Center, which is a national nonprofit organization serving survivors of gender-based violence. I'm also a community organizer at the Filipino Community Development Corporation and the co-founder of More Liberation. I graduated in 2015 from Golden Gate University School of Law.
Great, thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourself. So the first part of this, the questions will be focused on your law school journey and your experience. So our first question is, what law school activities did you participate in, whether that be law review or journals, moot court, student orgs, externships, and clinics that you found were surprisingly beneficial to your careers? And I would like to call on Alex first, if that's okay to answer that.
Sure, no problem. Well, I was involved in a lot of different law school activities, but if I had to pick one, I would say moot court was the most valuable to me. When people think of moot court, you think of oral argument typically, but moot court also really emphasizes writing and legal research. And if you want to litigate at all, I can't overstate the importance of writing. That's your bread and butter. And with moot court, I got the opportunity to write and learn from excellent other students and attorneys. And the only way to get better at writing is to repeatedly write. And as a 1L, you have required writing classes, but honestly, I don't think that's enough. So my advice to you is to seek out opportunities to continue improving your writing beyond your 1L year, whether that be moot court, a judicial externship, or elective writing classes, because I really can't overstate how important that is, especially as a new attorney where you don't really know that much substantive law.
And if anybody else, feel free to jump, the panelists to jump in if you have anything to say. This is an open conversation and everything.
This is Dalisai. I definitely agree with Alex's comments. I think the most beneficial experiences that I had in law school were related to the opportunities to work on the practical skills that you use in attorney. So for me, it was participating in the civil practice clinic that we had at Penn, which gave me the opportunity to I was the lead attorney, obviously with supervision, but interviewing my own witnesses, arguing agency proceedings, and the other courses that I took, appellate advocacy, and there was also an opportunity through the law school to participate in a regional oral argument competition. I want to say in my 2L year. So I think those things are really great that, as far as starting the foundation of what it means to be able to think through the nerves in oral argument and make a convincing case to the judges. It's definitely served me well, and including to the present day where I'm now as a senior associate expected to make and win oral arguments, which I've been able to do thanks to those early experiences and later opportunities.
I'll jump in here too. So when I was in law school, I probably did too many student organizations, if I'm being completely honest. I was a part of Moot Court. I was a part of the Hastings Law Journal. I was in PALS. I was also a 3L rep for the school. And I think if I were to go and do it back over again, I might have been a little bit more focused in terms of which organizations to focus in. But at the same time, each organization and each activity that I participate in, I got so much back from. And I feel like one of the main things, at least that I've taken from each of those experiences, was just teamwork and collaboration and working with your other professionals, because at the after you graduate from law school, these are people that you'll see as colleagues, and learning those skill sets and how to work together to get to a goal transfers over to anything and any other practice that you'll go into. And for me as a corporate in-house counsel now, I see that sort of collaborativeness as a one-to-one sort of learning process, that I was able to take those skill sets from each of those experiences and build it in.
Yeah, I would agree with everyone. There's certainly no substitute for working in a real case and working with real clients while you're in law school. So I would agree with Dalisai and Nelson and Alex, and getting practical skills. The other thing too, though, that was really helpful for me was a judicial externship. That has surprisingly, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of my judicial externship experience from law school, and not just in working in the legal field, but in a traditional legal practice, but also in different types of legal practice. So for example, I was able to get into policy work because I was able to sell, my judicial externship experience as a way to demonstrate my legal analysis and writing policies. And then I was able to work in a international regional project working with high-level officials of governments and judges. And that's from me selling my judicial externship as my ability to work with judges and people from different levels of society. So I would agree with everyone here.
Great, thanks everyone for sharing. It sounds like everybody did, no matter what you did, it always seemed to help you further in your legal career. So our next question, on the flip side, I know Nelson already answered this, but now that you guys are practicing and have talked to your colleagues about their own law school experience, are there any activities or opportunities that you wish you did if you could go back to law school?
Well, just what Chriselle said, I really wish I did a judicial externship. I didn't. And talking to my colleagues and my supervisors about, people who have, I think people who work with judges are not only excellent writers, but they have a sort of insight into how judges think that honestly, I've had to learn the hard way. by talking to other people, but I think nothing really beats working with a judge and seeing how they think. I think that's a unique experience that I really wish I had.
I'm going to plus one to that, to Chriselle and Alex's point about the judicial externships. That's one opportunity that I did not get to partake in. And I feel like when you're coming into a law firm and not having that litigation experience, the judicial externship is a great sort of like launching pad to get you ramped up quickly. And truth be told, when you're starting at a big law firm, you don't really get those opportunities to be in court right away as maybe some of your other counterparts at smaller firms or mid-sized firms will, or on plaintiff's side. And so not having that, you kind of have to learn by, making mistakes and, going back and forth with the partners and your colleagues at work, where I think that externship experience gives you that insight. And I know it's a valuable piece that I'm talking with my colleagues that I've heard about, so.
I agree with those comments. And I actually, I didn't do a judicial clerkship in law school. I did, an externship. But given that I graduated in 2010, and you all have heard stories about how difficult the economy was at that time, I went into law school with an open mind, but heard that judicial clerkships were an excellent opportunity for professional development. I remember hearing the presentations and thinking, I don't really want to do that. I want to go straight into practice because I know that I want to pursue employment law. Well, the economy changed in 2008, as we saw, and I found myself then thinking about what kinds of judicial clerkships would be a good opportunity for me, given that the job market was really challenging. And I will say that by far, the clerking was the best decision that I made, because I got to work very closely with a judge. By virtue of her assignment, she started off with a criminal assignment and then moved to civil. So I saw both criminal and civil appeals. That wasn't necessarily part of my plan, but I had the opportunity to work with her, for example, to write an opinion that reversed a first-degree murder conviction, which is not something that happens very often in Philadelphia. 300 pages, I think, was the total at the end of the day. It was very challenging and stressful, but there is no other way that I could have gotten that close insight into what goes into crafting an opinion to make it solid so that it will stand up on appeal, which it did. And so I would highly encourage folks that if you're not thinking about either an externship or a clerkship, to consider that as an opportunity.
And I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction here, because I think what I wish I would have done in law school, and from talking to my colleagues, really like kind of developing a self-resilience, like self-care and resilience practice. And there's so many opportunities, like free opportunities in law school to be able to develop one. So I wish that I had developed one sooner. I think it would have saved me a lot of like time, worrying so much about like the future, and also just it would have saved myself from being burned out like so early in my career. So I would encourage you to, explore those opportunities in your law school, find one that works for you, and then start practicing a routine now.
Right, that's such great advice, because I feel a lot of students, especially being virtual, we are feeling that burnout. So I guess I would like to go further on that question. I guess what are some suggestions or ways that you suggest for students to prevent burnout and to learn to take care of themselves?
Yeah, so at GGU, there were some classes on like self-care. So I don't know if those classes are still offered, but if they are, I would highly suggest that, if that's available in your law school, to take that. But there were also just a bunch of webinars or like seminars, workshops that would come like once, like every semester, and would teach students how to do different types of self-care activities. And then like feel free to explore outside of law school. Like I developed a meditation practice that I wish I had developed way sooner. And that was truly like in response to like being burned out. So I would suggest like just doing that now, look beyond law school, talk to your friends, talk to like other people who are maybe not attorneys, but seem like really happy and satisfied in their lives, and ask them like what they're doing.
I would, this is Dalisai. I second everything that Chriselle has said, and I probably should have started with self-care as a lesson learned. When I went into law school, I had been practicing martial arts for 5 years, had a really excellent balance, had figured out how to incorporate, exercise and being active. And that just went totally south when I started law school. So coming out, I had to relearn and sort of make some shifts in the way that I was allocating my time. I would say, yes, agree, take whether it's 5 minutes a day or 30 minutes once a week, whatever it is. I would highly encourage you to start building in some sort of self-care or self-investment into your practice. I also am a big proponent of getting outdoors, whether that's mountain biking, walking, taking a hike. Pick a time when it's less crowded, if in these times, if that helps you. But especially for us, I found over time that given that I have a very challenging sedentary job, any amount of time that I'm outside or actually moving or practicing breath work or meditation makes a big difference.
Yeah, I would agree and echo that sentiment about making time for physical activity and exercise and building that into your routine. I know for me personally that if I get, exercise or do something outdoors or active in the day, I feel 10 times better than those days where I just sit at my desk and don't move until until the end of the night. And it's one of those things that, you can always make an excuse like, oh, I don't have time to do this, or I don't have time to have that. But if you can just make 20, 30 minutes out of your day, just carve that out, build it in somewhere, it makes a world of difference just for your physical and mental well-being. And I think in terms of long-term sustainability in your career, it's really important just to have something besides the law that you're also, setting goals and improving for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have anything to add to that. It's I neglected a lot of exercise and other things in law school, and towards my last semester, I started exercising again and doing other things, and it really improved my mental health. I wish I did that sooner.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's definitely an important reminder for all of us students as we embark on this journey. So our next question is so for people who are like undecided about what area of law they want to practice, or what they want to pursue while during law school and even after law school, what advice do you have for them for how to market their skills that they developed in law school when there's just so many paths and options for them?
Well, first, I think if you're undecided, that's completely fine, but you should reach out to other attorneys. I mean, FBank is a great resource. You have a wide variety of attorneys here. I'm sure anyone would be able to, we welcome any questions you have. I did the same as a student. So reach out to people that you that are in your network. Reach out to your career office to connect with people, because that's the best way to learn what you want to do. But as for skills, again, I think writing and research are things that you can take to the bank, because I'm a new attorney. I've been practicing for a little over a year. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still learning a lot of substantive law. I don't know that much, and I don't think my supervisors expect that much from a new attorney. But what they do expect is hard work, and they expect me to learn how to be good at research and writing. And that's kind of carried me through the day and helped me to learn and acclimate very quickly to my position. So those are skills that you just are always valuable.
I think that's a great question. And my advice, if you want to focus on a couple of things, I would encourage you to the extent that you can, take classes or look for externships, or, within your law school years, look for experiences that expose you to different areas of law in a meaningful way. So, obviously taking Civ Pro is different than practicing civil litigation. I was not a fan of the previous of Civ Pro, but I like my law practice now. The other thing I would do is absolutely take advantage of the FBank network or your other networks, whether it's the Alumni Association or something else, and invite practicing attorneys to a virtual coffee. Let them know that you're a law student and you're interested in finding out more about X that they do. Maybe have someone introduce you. And I found that doing that when I was deciding, for example, whether I wanted to stay, I started off my practice on the plaintiff union side and later transitioned to the employer defense side. When I was doing that, I talked to attorneys who were practicing on the defense side and told them about my interests, things that I was thinking about that made it seem like that was a transition that would work for me. Asked them a lot about their day-to-day work and what they enjoyed and didn't enjoy about their practice. And that can be a really good way to get some very candid insights as to what the pros and cons or the challenges are of a particular area of practice. It's also a good way. We don't talk about money and finances all the time, but it's a valid concern, and you can talk to folks about those kinds of things when you have those one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, I'll chime in here too. So for me, when I was coming out of law school, and actually even when I started my career, I didn't know what practice I was going to end up in. I summered at my firm, DLA Piper, and I didn't even do anything employment law related until I joined my as a first year. So I don't think it's a prerequisite or necessary to know exactly what area of law you're going to dedicate your career to at this moment. What I will say is, I think it's important that you, demonstrate critical thinking, good writing, those habits that are generally applicable. And if you interview with people and they ask you about it, you don't have to make up a story that, your whole life you've been, thinking about this one thing. You can be candid and be honest and explain like, hey, I'm interested in a lot of stuff, but I'm open to learning, because the truth is, at this stage, you probably don't know exactly what it's like to practice, corporate law, or what it's like to do insurance defense. Like it's not expected of you. So don't feel too hard on yourself if that's, the case, but know what the skills you're gaining from law school are the ones you can transfer over to a number of different careers. And that's one of the benefits of being a lawyer.
Yes, I would agree with everyone. And, second, what Alex said about, it's totally okay if you're undecided. If you look at my resume, it looks like I was hella undecided. Like I was all over the place. I did like a policy internship. I did an internship at the Philippine Embassy. I went to Thailand to work with refugees. I was doing employment law. I was doing housing. I was working in DV. Like it was all over the place. But that was because I thought I was going to practice employment law. So I was like, well, I better like check out this other things and make sure I don't want to do them and make sure that I want to do employment law. So I kind of just followed my curiosity and try to find like, what are the things that I feel like would give me life? And my legal career has kind of mirrored my law school resume. Like if you look at my resume now, it still looks all over the place. But I am also okay with that, because for me, that's me just kind of following, like my instincts and just following like what is really like giving me life in this moment. And what I'm realizing now, 5 years into my legal practice, is that I've collected a whole bunch of tools. And it's like a Swiss Army knife, I could be anywhere and I have just all these like random experiences that makes me well suited to be in all these different roles. So I could almost like create the role that I really want. And that would like honing on like what my values are has been like a really good compass for me to figure out like what my next move is in my career. So don't be afraid. Like if you're undecided, just pick things that seem interesting and that seem like will give you life, and do that, and then see if you like that.
Great. Thank you so much for all those responses. I think it's really comforting to hear that, it's okay to not know what you want to do, and a lot of uncertainty, especially right now. So, and I think too, I just also want to emphasize how everybody was mentioning to like reach out to your network, and especially the FBank community. I know personally as a student, I've realized that my law school journey, it's not just me, it's a team effort. And so just everybody here in this community has really inspired me and helped me. So I want to be mindful of time. So I'm going to pass it to Tiffany for the next set of questions.
Thank you so much, Nicole. So our next set of questions are going to be focused on how law students and attorneys present can make their mark in the beyond, so post-grad. And so jumping to our first question, what are some specific things that you have done as an attorney that have helped you in either getting noticed, either by a partner or just by a firm or company in general, as well as anything that you can add that you've done to help you get promoted within your company or firm? And I wanted to start with Alex, if you could, and feel free for the other panelists to chime in.
So there are two things that I think are at least in my experience, got me noticed my first year as an attorney. I recently had my first year annual review, and my supervisor pointed out things that I didn't even know I was doing, which was great. He mentioned that he noticed I was volunteering for a lot of cases, different kinds of cases, picking up small projects from other attorneys. And he said that, you looks like you're really trying to learn. I think, and I wasn't me trying to, pump myself up anyway, but I legitimately was curious about these different areas of practice, different areas of law within our practice area. And he took notice of that. And that's how you learn as an attorney. And second, I think a specific thing that got me noticed is I took the time to actually get to know my colleagues. And if you get to know your colleagues, they're more likely to be able to offer you cool opportunities. Like I had a colleague working on a really interesting high profile class action. And I knew this colleague pretty well, and they had a research project. Hey, Alex, do you want to work on this research project? Because they just knew who I was as opposed to somebody else. And those are the ways you make your mark and you get noticed in the office. I think some FaceTime with supervisors and just people in general always stands out.
I have a couple things I want to share. So some things that help you get noticed. One thing that I did when I was at my previous firm was I really got to know and partner with my secretaries and paralegals very closely. And I think those relationships sometimes get overlooked, but they're super, super invaluable in terms of the work product and the deliverables that you give to clients. And knowing and having good relationships with those people in your firm will prop you up and help you be a better associate and a better attorney, because honestly they have like years and years more experience oftentimes than you, and they know what they're doing. And if you can leverage their skill set into and allow yourself to focus on the law and focus on brief writing or whatever the project is, that will make you stand out. And I had a project actually, one of the projects that helped me lead me to Uber, where I was managing and over supervising 5 to 10 secretary paralegals on a big issue. And having that managerial skill set too also stands you above, and instead of just being an attorney, but also someone that has perhaps leadership skills. And the second thing that I really want to plug is just involvement with bar associations, whether it be FBank or others. When you get involved and you seek actually fundraising or you seek support from your firm or your company, that actually puts you in contact with the leadership, because oftentimes those are the people who are making decisions of, oh, where are we going to support the, and where's our, donation fund essentially. And if you get that conversation going with those leaders early in your career, it definitely demonstrates that you have this, a different mentality, that you're not just there as an associate, but you're also there to build, a career, build a reputation, build the community. And I think those things go a long way in a lot of different organizations.
I absolutely agree with everything that's been said so far, especially I think as you grow into your career and you become more senior, the things that Alex and Nelson have mentioned become really critical. I would say another thing that helps you stand out and that I heard as advice early in my career that's really served me is always do good work, even if you're working on an assignment that is unimportant or not something that you are particularly interested in. For a couple of reasons. One is early in your career, as we've said, it's really important to show that you can, that you're able to master these basic skills that attorneys, that are critical for our practice, right? And so you don't want to take the approach of like, I don't really like this project, I'm gonna, whatever, and spend more time on the thing that I like. Because keep in mind that whoever you're working with on that not so exciting project will want to see that you can do the thing well, and then you apply that to the next projects. And you don't want to sort of put a spot on your reputation early in the career as somebody who's not doing careful work. That also means something that served me and that I learned, get comfortable asking for help, because you're going to need to know where to go for resources, whether it's a treatise or another associate who's done that before, and you have that, little conversation about what's the best approach, what is this partner or supervisor like. That becomes a great way and something that you'll use, I think, throughout your career in my experience. And then the last thing I'll say that I learned as I grew into law practice is keep an accomplishments list and get comfortable talking about the good work that you do. If you read about law practice or you talk to your peers, I think you'll find that for women, for anybody, but in particular women, it can be difficult to speak up about what you've done and to highlight your accomplishments. And so I would say, get used to doing that. An accomplishments list, as I understand it and use it, is not your resume, but just, projects that you do here and there, whether you thought it was a great outcome or not so great outcome, because even if you didn't get the great outcome, you learned, you developed relationships, you exercised your legal writing skills, whatever it is. And then the second piece is to feel comfortable talking about that. So as you're getting to know people in your office or the kinds of work opportunities that are available, you can say, oh, I did X once and it, this is what I did. Could I work on X project or Y project? And so those are things that I found have served me, helped me to stand out and also sort of position myself for the kinds of experiences that I want in my work.
I would agree with what everyone said, and then build on something that Nelson has mentioned about leaning into what sets you apart. So, and that's the Filipino identity will probably set you apart in your legal practice in the organization that you're coming into, that the lived experience that comes with that. And also, other experiences that maybe are not traditionally legal. So for me, an example of that is that I've been able to bring design thinking into a project that I was leading. I was leading our organization's design team for our border project. So, using something that's not traditionally legal and applying that to a legal problem was something that set me apart. I also have been able to use what I've learned about emergent facilitation to conversations around strategic planning for our organization. And, I think de facto, you are going to be involved and will have to take leadership role in conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion in your organizations. So, don't shy away from that, bring a perspective. Just because you're entering the legal industry, the legal field, doesn't mean that you get to erase you have to erase all of the experiences and identities that you came with, carry that with you and then lean into those identities, especially when you're in a space where, there's not going to be a lot of people who will probably look like you. So that's a unique perspective that you could bring and will certainly set you apart.
Thank you so much to all the panelists for giving a lot of practical advice that I think will be beneficial to all of our attendees, whether you're still in law school, looking to pursue a legal profession, and for all the attorneys also present. And this, something that Chriselle had actually discussed actually leads us perfectly to our next question. How have you utilized your diversity and past leadership experiences in your legal career? And are there any traits or experiences that have shaped you most for the current role that you're at? And actually wanted to switch gears and point to Nelson, if you could answer first. And again, to all the panelists, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, sure. No, and I think this is a very timely question, just what the country and the world is kind of dealing with. And I'll say actually last year and the years leading up have kind of built to this watershed moment and shift in a paradigmatic way of where companies and investors are looking at companies and firms to actually uphold diverse morals and values for their company. For instance, Uber actually announced over in the summer 14 anti-racist commitments that it was going to hold itself to, and it publicly shared this, and now it's actually ballooned to 17 commitments. But that allowed me actually to jump in and be one of the designated program managers for one of the commitments within Uber, and has given me actually visibility to a lot of different people within the company by, my experience working in employment law and equity and inclusion, and bringing that to the table as an advocate within the company. And I think it's actually a great opportunity for a lot of people here probably attending this panel right now, and the participants who are interested in a career that kind of marries the practice of law with diversity, because I don't think any other point in history we've actually been at this precipice point where people really want to hold companies accountable to what they're doing, and people are going to be audited about it and look into like, hey, are you guys actually staying true to it? So I think it's a great chance for a lot of people to actually jump into diversity, equity, inclusion, the DEI space. And if that's something you want to pursue in your career, I can tell you almost every company is making these pronouncements and trying to do better. And whether it's motivated by investors or whatnot, we're getting there somehow. So yeah.
I second everything that Nelson said, and I especially, Chriselle, your comments about, hanging on to the things that are important to you, even if it doesn't seem to be explicitly law related, 110% agree. And using myself as an example, before I went to law school, at undergrad at Berkeley, I studied ethnic studies, I studied abroad. Following law school, I was working in community-based organizations advocating for marginalized communities around affordable housing, environmental justice. And so you hear me say that, and some people would think, well, employment law defense, that doesn't really relate. And at the time that I was focusing my energies on those things, we certainly didn't have the level of interest in DEI questions that we do right now, especially after summer of 2020. I kept that interest going just out in my personal life and involvement with FBank and other bar associations, because it's important to me. It's super interesting. It's relevant to me and who I am and my identity in this world and profession. And it has actually, very much served me as an asset in ways that I couldn't have necessarily predicted. So as an example, Jackson Lewis has a DEI practice. We have an equity pay practice. And so when I was, looking for opportunities to lateral to the management side, I saw that and thought, well, no brainer. There's going to be opportunities here for me that might not exist elsewhere. And I've been able to pitch myself and my experience in academic training, along with my professional pre-law experience, as a person who will be a value add to those practices. It's been, well received, and there's certainly not a shortage of work. So that's one way that, as we've said earlier, your unique experiences and perspective will serve you, particularly, now that we're having more conversations around DE&I. And if you have other interests that aren't, necessarily related, absolutely hang on to those, because they will be opportunities, if not within your place of employment, then outside with bar associations or other places. It's still, leadership opportunities and professional opportunities can come from that.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, what is one thing a summer or new associate has done that has made them stand out to you in a positive way? And if I could start with Dalisai.
Sure. Kind of going to my comments earlier, and I think about these things as a senior associate when I'm delegating work or collaborating with other more junior attorneys. I really appreciate when I'm working with an associate at the beginning of a project, when I get questions about, what does this mean? What's the goal? To indicate that the associate is thinking critically about what they're doing. Understanding too that in my younger years, when I was getting these delegated assignments from partners who didn't go through that process, it could be a little disorienting, and I didn't always necessarily know where to start. So I try and take the initiative to do that as a senior attorney. I really love when junior associates ask me questions about those things at the, on the front end, and also checking in with me along the way after you've spent 2 or 3 hours on something. Love it when somebody comes to me and says, this is what I'm finding. Is this on point? Is this what we need? In particular, because things change a lot as you go along. And so I might have had a call with the client, and junior associate tells me they found, something in their research. And I say, oh, that's amazing, because this issue just came up. And so it really just helps, I think, the efficiency of the work, but also you have that exchange with the attorneys that you're working with, and that can go really far.
So my response is more of a post-internship sort of response. But what stood out to me is after a summer internship, when interns stay in contact with you, and I know my colleagues also appreciate that. And that's actually how I got my job. I kept in contact with people. They knew I was looking for a job, and they're like, "Hey, Alex, we're thinking of you. You want to work here?" And I think it's important to maintain the relationships that you build during your internship, because the people that are assigned to work with interns are typically people that they want to mentor interns. They don't just throw anybody with the interns. So I think those are good people to stay in contact with.
Yeah, 100% echo Dalisai and Alex's points on that. And I just want to build on a point of that Dalisai was mentioning. When I was working with a summer associate or a junior attorney and assigning them a project, it'd be a very bad sign if I assigned them something, never heard back from them until it was due, and then they sent me something. That would actually be the worst case scenario of a situation if I delegated work. Because the truth is, it's never going to be like a perfect handoff of like, hey, this is the project and now just do it, because there's always things that change and questions that come up, and as a junior or a summer associate, you're not going to have those answers or the experience necessary to know exactly what to do. And even a more senior attorney, you're not going to have that. So it's so crucial, and it goes back again to the kind of the teamwork and team building skills that you get from law school, of having that open communication and knowing how to flex on the on the project, and where you fill in the gaps of what you don't know, and being humble enough to admit that, and then to get to the ultimate goal of producing good work product.
And the only thing I would add to what everyone has already said is I also take a look at how they receive feedback. So whether they're receiving feedback with the learner's mindset, or whether they become defensive to it, and then and then how they apply the feedback into their work moving forward.
Thank you so much. I do want to be mindful of time and leave some remainder of our time here today for questions from the attendees. So just to kind of close off this portion of the panel, what would be your top 3 advice points to stand out as a new lawyer? And I'll leave that for anyone who wants to go ahead and answer.
Quickly, the top 3 things is: 1, seek out opportunities to learn. Don't think any project is too small. 2, meet your colleagues. They're invaluable. They have great advice. They have more experience than you oftentimes, and that's a resource you should take advantage of. And 3rd, when you find a problem that you can't solve, try to solve it first before asking for help. Sometimes it's helpful just to be like, this is the issue. This is how I plan to approach it. What do you think? And I think that's taken me very far as well. It shows initiative. And those are the 3 things that I would advise you all to do.
I think my top 3 are get involved in FBank if you're not already in some capacity. These relationships will last you. They have lasted me my entire career. I met Ray when we were probably in our 1st and 2nd years of practice as baby attorneys, and here we are many years later. So that's the first one. Also, do good work, as I mentioned earlier. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you will build a reputation as somebody who is trustworthy, and that someone who inspires confidence, which is an asset. And then lastly, what we talked about earlier, take care of yourself, your mental, physical health, your financial health. Those are all important.
I would say first, to what Dalisai just said, start a self-care practice, a self-resilience practice, and take care of yourself. The second is to, don't just learn about the law and the legal system, also learn about how the legal system is perpetuating white supremacy and how it oppresses and subjugates like Black, Indigenous, people of color communities. And then find out different ways that you could practice law so that you could begin to dismantle that. And then my last thing is to just be kind and have integrity. Be a good person to work with. That goes a long way.
Yeah, I feel like we've said so much here. I'm trying to distill it into 3 points that I can give to you, but I think I'm going to recycle a little bit of what has already been said. first I'd say know yourself and know your self-worth. And, I think a part of what come into law school and come out with it is, I think we all have a different upbringing, a different experience, and knowing what makes you unique and makes you stand out, and being confident in that, and being able to convey that to others. That's an important thing, and just sort of developing your own narrative and story about where you're going, and where you have been and where you're going. Second, I would say, really value the friendships and relationships and all those that you meet along the way, because your classmates, your people you meet in the bar associations, the professors that you work with, your bosses, everyone kind of becomes your network. And the better your network is, and the better that people kind of think of you and your reputation, the more doors that open up. And so it just makes life easier when you have those that network to kind of fall back on. And third, do good work. I think you can't get away from that. Like, as being a lawyer, you have to take pride in what you do. And I think people have said this here, no matter how small or meaningless, or not meaningless, but no matter small the project seems to be, or on the priority list, you never know where it may lead. And everyone's always, you can always, it takes a long time to build up a good reputation, and only like a short amount of time to lose it. And if you drop the ball somewhere and kind of blow off an assignment, people don't forget that. So yeah, those are my 3 points.
Thank you so much to all of the panelists for all the advice and for sharing your personal experiences and being very candid with us today. I do want to remind everyone that if you'd like to submit a question to our panelists today, feel free to drop that in the Q&A portion of your Zoom client. And for now, while we kind of wait for any questions that attendees may have, I wanted to pose this question to all of the panelists, so feel free to chime in if you'd like to answer. For those of you who have transitioned between a firm or company, or just made some sort of career change, how have you navigated those transitions? And are there any resources that you relied on in making those decisions?
I can speak to that because I feel like I've made so many transitions in my short legal career. And again, this point has already been made, like FBank is such a resource, and your network is a really important resource, because especially what I find with FBank attorneys is that they're very candid about what it's like to practice, down to what they're making. So reaching out to FBank attorneys for mentorship, if it's an area of law that you want to consider doing, or a different way of practicing law, that's really helpful. And then also focusing on the transferable skills. Like, a lot of the skills that you're collecting along the way are gonna be useful, I promise you. Like, so leaning into those and marketing that when you go into an interview that is not the same field, or not the same industry even.
Yeah, I can also speak on to this point. So I actually just joined Uber officially as of December 2019. So I went from law firm practice to jumping in-house. And I could tell you that, when you're looking to make that jump and you're interviewing and applying, it's it's a time-consuming process, actually. And I think you can be forgiving of yourself on certain things if, so for me, I was actually, I was on the FBank board a couple of years ago, and then I decided to take some time to just focus in on this transition process, because I knew how much, how important it was to make the right choice and to move into the right space. And being, I had to kind of be honest with myself that if I wanted to do this right, I needed to take time. And I think as attorneys, a lot of us are type A and want to do everything in the world. And my track record of experience in law school is any indication of that. I definitely try to at times, but I think it takes understanding that you can't do everything all at once, and giving yourself that period of breathing and self-reflection to know when that timing is right. And just on that point, I think it's important to do a kind of a self-check every year or so about where you are in your career and what you're doing, and are you happy with it, and is this something you can see yourself doing longer? Just because, you know, I think it's hard to know before you get into the practice of law or get into a certain type of career or start working at a firm or a company before you really understand and internalize, like, oh, this is what it's like, right? So granting yourself those moments of clarity is important.
I can also comment on this, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think certainly having clarity is pretty critical. If you're feeling that there's, you know, maybe what your current role is not giving you everything you need, then having a clear understanding of what it is that you need, the change that you need to make, pretty important if you're going to, you know, make moves or make some shifts. And the other things that I did that I've mentioned already, I really relied on my network and sort of thinking through these questions, whether it was peer mentorship or being connected with a much more senior attorney who had gone the path that I thought I wanted to go. I found myself in thinking about my transition from plaintiff side to defense side work. As you can imagine, some of the people and the plaintiff union side were not super excited to hear that that was part of my interest. And so my immediate circle didn't necessarily have the resources or the capacity to help me think through those questions. And by sort of reaching out more broadly to the FBA network, I could find people who could help me and sort of help me identify the transferable skills that we've mentioned a couple times. So that was really important. And I think also doing your homework, as Nelson has alluded to, like if you've gotten the clarity around what you want, then, you know, through those one-on-one conversations that I've talked about, through, you know, researching the places that you think you might want to lateral or make the change to ensure that it's the right, you know, culture for you, that the work that you want to do is there, that you'll be supported. Those are the things that I focused on.
Thank you so much for kind of sharing and reminding us the importance of community, and that there is a community here at FBank that is willing to help us and really be the people to remind ourselves that it's okay to make these changes, and that is also normal, and that you don't have to be set on one path and there's multiple paths to go into. And that being said, we did get a question from one of our attendees, and this is again to any panelist who wishes to talk on it. How have you celebrated your identity as a Filipinx attorney and made a seat for yourself at the table?
So for me personally, in the San Francisco Attorney General's office, there are literally 3 Filipino attorneys in all 3 divisions. And we all know each other because there's only 3 of us, but the majority of the legal staff are actually Filipino. And what's funny is my first day there, they found out, oh, you're an attorney. They started inviting their friends to stop by my office, just like, wow, we have a Filipino attorney. They look after you. They're like my titas and titos. It's really nice. And it's surprising to me how much it really means to them. And what I can do to celebrate my identity as a Filipinx attorney and to give back to the community is honestly what Dalisai said a while ago: do good work. We're here, we're capable. And when there are opportunities for me to invite other diverse attorneys, especially Filipino attorneys, I want to be able to be in a position where I can say, hey, you know, I'm in a position where people trust me and I can, you know, reach out and mentor to you as well. So that's the best way I can do in my as a new attorney. But it matters to people more than I expected, to be completely honest with you.
I can chime in on this one as well. And before I do, I'll just, for the record, because I know this is being recorded, my name is pronounced Dalisai. No shade to anybody. I know it's not a common name. And I would say, you know, whether you find space to celebrate your amazing Pinay Powerhouse identity at your workplace or elsewhere, absolutely celebrate it. I have worked in a variety of places at my current firm. Before we went to shelter in place, we had, again, you know, lots of Filipinx staff attorneys. And so we had Filipino lunch, which blew my mind. I could like eat pancit and then go work on my motion, which was amazing. But you won't always have that. And so I think it's about creating spaces to celebrate, you know, who you are with the cultural experiences for you uniquely. You know, don't worry about, do I have to be a certain way to celebrate my identity? I don't speak Tagalog. Doesn't matter, still hella Pinay. Get involved with the Pinay Powerhouse, which has a conference coming up in March, just to, you know, to see yourself reflected in this community is pretty amazing. And so I would just say, you know, whatever it turns out to be, whether it's within the workplace or elsewhere, absolutely make time to celebrate your identity and to build community in some way through FBank or otherwise.
Yeah, so shameless plug to be a part and participate in FBank and the programs and events that we offer. I've said this before, but for an organization our size, we punch way above our weight class in terms of the amount of programming, the amount of scholarships, the amount of involvement that we have. This past year, we were the NAPABA, National Asian Pacific American Bar Association Affiliate of the Year. And the fact that FBank won that award in the sea of, so usually it goes to the umbrella organization like Asian American Bar Association or something similar in a different region. And the fact that it went to, the Filipino Bar Association of Northern California, I think we take great pride in. And so on top of what you can do in your career, I think being involved in FBank, whether you're a board member or on a subcommittee or you just attend the events, gives you a window and a space to get really involved and know what's going on with the community. And I think for all of us that are part of it, it gives you so much more than what you put in, and it's such a rewarding space.
And I would add to that like my Filipino identity has been so central to my legal practice. I've not only like represented Filipino clients and worked with like Filipino judges and prosecutors and the Philippine Supreme Court, but I'm also able to identify with the community that I'm serving, which is so empowering. And it has really like a different impact when your advocate looks like you and speaks the same language, and that builds community. And to Alex's point, it means so much to the community to see you in this position. And I see that not just as an attorney, but also as a community organizer, even when I'm not acting as a legal advocate, just by virtue of me being in that space and them knowing that, oh, wow, you are an attorney, it empowers the entire community.
Thank you so much. I see that we're almost at time for the next event in the conference, but I just want to take this time to thank all the panelists for sharing your personal experiences, giving this candid advice, and really showing us, all the attendees, how you've been able to stand out in your respective professions and legal careers. Thank you so much. And we are very much appreciative of all the wisdom that you've imparted on us today. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
So feel free to hop on over to panel 3 using the online program for the link. And thank you again to all of our panelists and to our wonderful moderators.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.